Hey, what's up guys, this is Tech Boy here with another video. This video is the top 5 features that I'm expecting to be unveiled for the iPad 5th generation. We had the original iPad in 2010, then the iPad 2 in 2011, then in 2012 we had the iPad 3 with Retina display at the start of the year, and then towards the end of the year we had an incremental update at the same time they announced the first generation iPad mini. The biggest rumours going around is basically saying, when is this device going to come out? Because everybody knows that this device exists, but nobody knows when it's going to come out itself. But this video I am going to be focusing on what exactly do we want to expect in it. Not so much when it's going to come out, but more what do we want to see in it. So let's get started. Coming in at number 5. The minor adjustments. As you can see on the graph on the right there, basically what it's saying is over time you're going to have incremental improvements all the time, and then you're going to have a radical breakthrough, which that, for example, could have been the Retina display in the 3rd generation, and then all the little ones at the top, that's like the 4th generation iPad. But anyways, what I'm expecting is something like iOS 6.1.2, even 0.3, or even iOS 6.2 rather. Nano SIM would be good, and I'll explain more about that later on. So you can then use Wi-Fi models with cellular models and all that. But by making it smaller, it can leave more space for other components inside the device, including battery life, for example. Stereo speakers are definitely a must. They can't leave these out in this generation because it's always been a mono speaker ever since the 1st generation, and the iPad mini 1st generation has a stereo speaker in it, as you will understand from this video from CNET's Apple Byte a few weeks back. Enjoy.
Alright guys, we're here at Belkin's booth. This is like their soundproof room. I'm here with my man Brandon,
hey.
A viewer of the Apple Byte.
Yes.
See, like how long have you been watching it?
Like 3 years now.
He's hardcore, right? So this is really cool because this is one of the cool products here at the show. This is, I call it the Thunderstorm, but Brandon, what's the official title for this thing?
It is the Belkin Thunderstorm handheld home theater for the iPad. Apple manufactured great devices, but they haven't yet mastered the audio. Even
oh, you heard that? No, it's true. It's true.
So
they must have a fair point, I dare say. Anyway, moving on. Allowing AirPlay mirroring at 1080p. Yes, you can stream videos in 1080p to an Apple TV at the moment, but you can only mirror, which is like the applications and surfing the web and the home screen and everything you do basically in 720p, but only the videos come up in 1080p. If they allowed this in full 1080p, it would be a really nice addition and you get a much crisper picture with the higher resolution on a TV, and it would provide more benefit to a TV and have more of a reason to have an Apple TV 3rd generation, because that's 1080p, but you can only mirror in 720p, so time will tell. Near-field communication is probably going to be announced in the iPhone 5S or 6 first, because that will be the feature that will almost want to sell the phone. But then, once they've done that, they might implement it into the iPad or iPad mini later on. But you never know, they might put it in the iPad first, but only time will tell. So just take this with a pinch of salt. And also Lightning to USB 3.0 support. Because it just sickens me that Apple updated all of their cables from the 30-pin dock connector to the Lightning connector, but it's exactly the same speed. I understand that it's very small and all that, and it will be able to make it easier for them to engineer these devices and make them thinner and put other components in and stuff like that. But what's the point implementing it in the first place if you haven't put USB 3.0 support in it first? Because all these Macs that were released and announced last year, they've all came out with USB 3.0 support, so why don't they just put it in the cables themselves? Because that will help solve the whole ecosystem and make it faster. Because of course everybody will be updating their stuff. I would assume a lot of people do it over Wi-Fi or cellular data and all that. But for the people that still like to do it, I would see this as a nice addition, especially if it came with the cable right out of the box and support for it. Anyway, moving on. Coming in at number 4 is the cameras. Now don't get me wrong, the cameras on the back of the 3rd and 4th generation iPad are brilliant, but there is no reason that they can't improve on what they have already put in, because that's what Apple is well known for. An 8 megapixel rear facing camera would be a nice spec bump, especially if the iPhone 5S or 6 is probably going to get a 12-13 megapixel camera, probably more like 13, because they're going to do that if they're going to bump up this to 8 megapixels. So just every camera in every iOS device that they currently have, it will slowly get better and better as the technology gets better, smaller, and most importantly, cheaper. A microphone next to the rear-facing camera would be a nice addition for better audio quality. A 2 megapixel camera at the front with 1080p front-facing, so you basically get full HD for FaceTime, because you got FaceTime HD at the moment in 720p, but in 1080p that would be a nice addition, which would give more benefit on a Retina display. An f2.2 aperture would be a slight improvement over the current 2.4 aperture in these cameras, because then they will let more light in, and it would be better for taking photos and videos at night, so you get more light in to make even brighter photos. So you could have a flash there if you want, but it's not really necessary if you've got a better aperture. There's probably very, very slim chance that they will put the ability to record 4K footage with the rear-facing camera, but if anything, they'll probably implement that once Apple releases their full-on TV set, so it has 4K resolution. So if they basically say, well, if you record something on your iPad or your iPhone in 4K, you can then take that home, connect it to your Apple TV set, and play that back in its full original resolution, which would be really nice, but of course it would come at a price. They may allow panoramas on the iPad and iPad mini. They put it on the iPhone and the iPod Touch, but they never put it on the iPads itself, which is a bit strange. I mean, you don't want to start this whole using your iPad in public phenomenon, which I don't want to see growing, but it would be nice if they just have these few features in it for the occasional video every now and then, just in case, like if you got your phone or something on you and then you go, oh, damn it, my phone's dead. Okay, I'll just pull out my iPad and just record stuff off that. Also, pinch to zoom would be a nice addition for recording videos, or because of the stability of keeping the device still while doing pinch and zoom and all that, it would be good if they put a slider on the side. So once you've started recording, you could move a slider to zoom in and out, or even pinch to zoom would be nice. And also a flash on the back would be good for darker photos, but it's not really necessary if they have a better aperture, like I mentioned before. So either of those two would be nice, but if any of the camera specs get any of these, it would be a really nice addition. Moving on, number 3 is storage and pricing. Because the current iPads at the moment, full-size iPads, 4th generation, they start at 16 gigabytes for $4.99, and just recently they announced a 128 gigabyte version for $7.99 and $929. Obviously it's $130 more for the radios itself, but what I basically see happening is this. Basically it's twice the storage at every price point they had before, but no 256 gigabyte model. But why should this happen? Well, simply, it should happen because prices of solid state storage is going down a lot more, and it has gone down quite a bit ever since the first iPad 3 years ago. But they're also going to implement all these they've got to implement higher storage to be able to accommodate for Retina display apps, HD movies, and it will entice people to download more stuff from iTunes, which would help with revenue for Apple to be able to pay for all their staff and facilities and infrastructure and blah blah blah. But yet another way to entice people to get an iPad 5 instead of an iPad mini, because an iPad mini in the US, these are all US prices, starts at $329, and the iPad 4th generation at the moment starts at $499, which is $170 difference. But if they doubled the storage on the full-size iPad, it will almost give another reason as to why they should get the full-size one. Pardon me. It would almost give them another reason to get the full-size iPad as opposed to getting the mini one, because if you could get double the storage and a bigger screen and all that for $170 more, you'd be surprised that a lot of people will go down that path. And moving on, coming in at number 2 is the Apple A7 chip. That picture on the right is just like the only one I could find with it, but I like this logo. Anyways, the A6 is a dual-core chip at 1.4 gigahertz each. So instead of speeding them up, it's basically going to be twice as fast if they double the number of chips, the number of cores they have. So instead of having 2 cores, they are probably going to end up going to quad-core eventually. And the A6 chip in the iPad 4 at the moment is a dual-core CPU, but has quad-core GPU. So the A7 is basically got to be a quad-core processor to be able to cope with faster loading times, and if Apple eventually makes a more complex iOS with iOS 7 and includes more features like split-screen multitasking on an iPad, for example, they're going to need a lot of processing power to be able to accommodate for that. So there's no point having a really fast processor for your device unless they have software that can take advantage of it. So if they do eventually end up introducing quad-core, I can see them making a far better iOS to be able to support it, because they will take advantage of it with lots of new features and stuff. And Apple is getting TSMC to build the chip instead of Samsung, which explains why the picture on the right is what it is. Anyway, but moving on, before we get to number 1, let me list a few things that are basically wishful thinking. A lot of them are quite obvious. Adobe Flash, it's never going to happen because Apple doesn't want to invest in that because they believe HTML5 is the future. HTML5 is the future. Adobe Flash is not going to happen. There, put that to rest. SD card slot, it's not going to happen because there will be no reason to charge people for higher priced models. There, settle that. Transparent design, it's not going to happen for many years from now. A home buttonless iPad is not going to happen because Apple will be implementing fingerprint sensors into the home buttons with their recent acquisition of Authentic in 2012. But the iPhone's probably going to get it first as a selling point, like Siri was for the iPhone 4S, which explains why 4S stood for Siri. Just because it was 4, I didn't mean 4 Siri. Coming with iOS 7, they'll probably, I believe they will announce a beta at the same time they announce the full-size iPad 5th generation, and then they'll probably release it, iOS 7, to the full public when the next iPhone comes out at WWDC in June. And also, a laser keyboard, it's a really good idea, and Apple has got patents for it and all that. It almost seems like it is going to happen, but is it going to be the selling factor for the iPad 6 or 7? It probably will be. It's not going to be for the iPad 5, as we will see as we get to number 1. And that number 1 is an iPad mini chassis. Basically, it's going to be almost the same thickness, if not exactly the same, as the iPad Mini first generation, or maybe even the second generation, if the iPad Mini 2 gets a Retina display, because obviously that's going to be a bit thicker to accommodate for it. But it's going to probably get very slim bezels on the side. It will lose a lot of weight because it's at 652 grams at the moment. But the rumoured size dimensions are basically 4mm shorter, 17mm skinner, and about 2mm thinner than the third and fourth generation iPad. It's almost a given that the iPad 5 will have a very minimal bezel to make it look fresh and modern, because if you see the picture on the left there, the iPad Mini is on the right, the iPad 4th generation is on the left, and the rumoured iPad 5th generation is in the middle, which does look more fresh, modern, up to date. You just get a general feeling that it's more modern and up to date. It's just a generalised thing. And plus, who's going to want a full size, no offence, who's going to want a really huge tablet and just have a huge thick border around the side? I understand people like them to keep their fingers on it and all that when they're doing it. But in iOS 6 they implemented a feature, it wasn't huge or anything, but it was a very subtle feature, where you could be holding it with your thumb on the side, on the iPad Mini for example, and then you use another finger to move through the device and all that, and that thumb that you originally held is not interfering with it. So, if this looks like what it's going to come out, I think everyone's going to be for a real treat. So anyways, thank you very much for watching. The question for you, the audience, is, excluding the iPad 5 being built like a large iPad Mini, just like what I said for number 1, the question for you, the audience, is, what do you want to see in the iPad 5? Do you want to see an A7 quad-core processor chip because you just like really fast specs? Do you want to see like a far better camera because you're probably a part of that phenomenon of taking photos with your iPad in public? Or do you want to see something fresh and really outstanding, something that almost Android will never be able to compete in for quite some time? But then if they come and do it, then they'll probably sue them and all that and go down that track. But anyways, you can leave a comment in the section below, and if you enjoyed this, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel, but only if you want to. I'm not forcing anybody to subscribe. That's totally up to what you want to do. And thank you very much for watching, guys. I appreciate the support, and I will catch you later. Peace.